Yeah, I got that up. That Real Deal article was good too that you shared.
Right. Do you read Real Deal on a regular basis? I need to go back to reading Real Deal and N-Man.
Yeah, I read them.
I think that's valuable stuff right there. The Real Deal always seems to like just call it out for what it is. N-Man's a little political, a little bit
Yeah,
trying to motivate. It seems like Real Deal is trying to motivate realtors to do things in a certain way. Where I feel like, I'm sorry, Inman is trying to motivate realtors to behave a certain way, try to make and influence markets. But I
Yeah.
feel like Real Deal is just kind of putting it out there for what it is and letting everybody react to the article.
Yep.
Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, it is. Inman definitely has an agenda more than Real Deal for sure. You know,
Francesco, I like it. I like your
I know,
style.
sorry.
looking good.
I look myself here.
I wish I could
Morning,
pull
everybody.
that off.
Hey, good morning, Jeff.
There we go.
I have no problem with you staying live.
I think get back from running.
I think we could probably attract some agents, and I'm not even going to say female or male. I'm just going to say we can attract some agents. Now appearing on stage 3, Francesco. Yeah, I think Inman has gotten very market builder oriented, which happens a lot of times when you have periodicals that grow and become so influential. And I think that Real Deal is just still small enough. I feel like Real Deal is still small enough that they can stay unbiased and objective and just try to get it out there. But
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong. So while we're waiting for some more realtors to join, I got a question for the agents that are here. What have you guys encountered this week that gave you heartburn? Because I want to have topics to cover for the next couple shows, and I love researching this stuff in advance. What have you guys encountered this week that gave you friction, gave you heartburn, gave you cause to pause?
I'll unmute myself.
Yeah.
I'm not a great buyer's agent, I guess. I've been working with this couple for I guess a good 6 months, and they're well qualified professionals, etc. My issue with them is last time they bought real estate must have been the era during the 2009 downturn, and maybe shortly thereafter when it started in the uptick turn. And they both own property separately, and now they want to buy a home together. But their mental point of view is that they can still offer way below.
So setting expectations, setting market expectations, setting expectations of what buyers have to be realistic to be willing to pay to participate has been a pain point for you.
I think she's on mute.
Sorry, I'm on mute. I actually set the market expectations by sending them the information on what other listings in the same area had sold for at a specific point in time, not more than a month or less from the time they made an offer on a specific property. And my issue with them is trying to convince them that their perspective on making offers and prices in today's market, in spite of the fact that the interest rates are higher, and in spite of the fact that their offer is an all-cash offer, is not realistic, only because inventory continues to be very low. They want a turnkey kind of a home to a certain extent, but then they're willing to purchase the one that's not turnkey, that needs up maintenance, but their mindset again is one of well, if I'm going to have to do all this work, then I'm going to discount the asking price by all the money that I'm going to have to put into it. And trying to explain to them that the reason why the price is at that price point is because it does need maintenance, retrofitting. But I don't want to implicate myself legally by saying, look, this is the way it is. I tried to hint it, since both of them are professionals and bright, it seems like. I figured if I send them the information, if I send them market reports, if I send them the local area, exactly specific around the area that has sold for X number, this is the asking price and this is the sale price. But their mindset is, we are not going to pay what they're setting the price at. And the most we would pay would be whatever comparables you send us, because they get stuck on the per square foot price. They just don't understand that somebody's kitchen that is made out of wood and somebody's kitchen that's made out of pressed wood has a different value. Right. And aesthetically speaking, maybe they both look the same, but structurally speaking, they're both different. And one's going to have a higher value versus the other. And they don't seem to settle on that specific information. Also, the community that I'm showing the property at is, some lots are half an acre, some lots are a third of an acre, some lots are 3/4 of an acre, some lots are an acre. So depending on the land, it's going to be the price point. So trying to educate them and have them realize that this is what the market is has been difficult at best, without saying it straight like I'm saying it to you. And the reason why I don't want to say it straight like I'm saying it to you is because one of them is an attorney and she takes every single thing that I say, I notice verbatim. And
so no, I know where you're going to go with this, and I don't want to cut you off, but we're at 10:05.
No, go ahead.
But here's what I'll bring to the table, and this is from, I sit in on some other realty group discussions, and this discussion is, although this discussion is more legally based and business based, and we want to give you the technical and legal elements that you guys can bring to the table, bolster your technical and legal elements. There's a couple of realtor business discussions that I sit in on, and you can only pound your buyer or seller over the head with the facts so much, right? And just like you said, your buyers are realtor, they're attorneys, they're critical thinkers. There's an acronym, and I'll bring it to our next meeting, where you identify the personality type of your client, and then you speak to them in their language. And I'll bring the acronym, and I've heard him mention it on this other realtor discussion a few times, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's so accurate. And there's 4 personality types. And when you identify the personality type of your client, then you can use those tools to talk to them in their language, and it's easier to get them on board. Because from my perspective, I do the same thing. I'm just like pound them over the head with the facts. Wood, not granite, Formica, pool, no pool, bigger garage, but it doesn't work. And so now you have to figure out a different plan of attack, basically.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll bring that to the next meeting. All right, it's 10:05. Ryan, you ready to roll this thing?
Yeah, excited for this one, Jim. Having worked with foreign buyers in the past, especially some investors, this new legislation on Senate Bill 264 got passed July 1st. It's very relevant. It's going to come to a lot of us agents here, and we definitely want to be careful with this what you disclose, what is being said to buyers and sellers. So excited for it. But yeah, this is great to be back here in the webinar. Glad you're back, Jim. Last one you missed out. We were sorry we missed you on that one with Greg Buck on the insurance.
No, I apologize. I think that big takeaway, like we talked about this morning, the big takeaway was co-insurance. The people that are underwriting, the insurance underwriters are seeing bigger risks, and prices aren't coming down. And just like Maria's struggling with her buyer, you got to set expectations early so people don't get to that sticker shock moment late in the deal. We've got a great topic today. Ryan was talking about the Senate bill. There's a twist to it. I don't know if you're going to hear the twist, so stick with us. There's a twist to the bill that I have not heard anybody else talk about. We're going to do this for about 15 or 20 minutes. Then I've got another topic I'd like to glance off the top of at the end, just kind of a closer. And then we're going to open it up for question and answer. You guys can go in the chat session and give us any questions you have about the topics or stuff you'd like to talk about in future sessions. And then Ryan's got, as always, he's got his real trade tools he's going to drop on you guys that'll save you time and save you money and get clients. Did you have something you want to say before we get into it, Ryan?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm excited for this one too. It's, you know, like I said, it's very relevant, and you know, we got to be careful here as agents, you know, especially when we start communicating the law, right? And what we can and can't tell our clients. So we're gonna have some great advice. Glad we have an attorney here with Jim that's sharing this information. So let's do it, Jim.
And you guys can text me 24/7. If you go to New Path Title, you'll see my mobile phone number on New Path Title. We're 100% realtor oriented at New Path Title, and I give you guys my text number. You can text me 24/7. If you have any issues that you're working out, whether I'm the closing agent or not, whether I'm representing a party or not, I'll be happy to walk you through any iterations of a deal that gets you to a payday. All right. Sales to foreign buyers. This is a July. Can you see my screen, Ryan?
Yep.
All right.
Looks
So
great.
this is a July 2023 law that, as Ryan mentioned, please note, this law is not stable and therefore the material may be outdated. I'm going to give you, I updated it last night. I'm going to give you the most current iteration of the law, and they're still ironing out details in the law. My personal opinion, without making any political statements, is that this law is not going to last long. So having said that, I'm going to tell you what I know, but just be aware this thing's subject to change, and it could be, it could be changing. I've got my screen shrunk down. So Ryan, if anybody raises their hand or whatever, just let me know and we can
Yeah.
pause anywhere through it.
And too, if you have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat. We'll get to them too as we go. So if you don't forget them, you can ask them as we go in the chat too.
So July 1st, like Ryan said, the new law, Senate Bill 264, codified in Florida chapter statutes, chapter 692. You don't have to remember any of that stuff. You just got to remember there's a new law about how you qualify buyers. Buyers' violations of the law are criminal and can result in forfeiture of the property. Sellers who sell with knowledge that the buyer is prohibited can be criminally liable. And I'm going to add in here, realtors functioning the same way can be liable. It's not clear exactly how third parties can be liable, but they can be liable. So if your buyer tells you they have an issue that may put them in violation of the law, I would advise you tell them to get an attorney's opinion that they are not in violation, or you will not represent them. I've never taken that strong a position before, but I'll tell you why in a few minutes, why I'm doubling down on that position. Almost all current FAR bar and FAR contract forms have been updated with the following disclosure. I think everybody by now has seen this. It's a general statement of the law, and it's right above the signature section. I'm going to also tell you guys, don't forget, when you're signing contracts for your clients, don't forget to put in the addresses for notice. That's a sidebar. But this disclosure is on the form. And I talked to so many realtors lately, and they say, I'm not doing anything about this because it's already in the contract, but here's why you have to do something about it. So that realtors are not spending time with buyers who may not close at the end, it's best to bring the new law to the buyer's attention as early in the transaction as possible. Like when you first meet the buyer, and the same holds true for sellers agents, when you first meet the buyer's agent and ask them if the buyer is aware of the law. We'll go into a little bit deeper. A breakdown of the law. The law prohibits two types of buyers. Those who, let's shrink this up a little bit. There's two types of buyers who can't buy. And this is the first class. They live in a foreign country of concern and are not citizens or lawful permanent residents of the US. You guys don't have to write this down. I'm going to give you the outline at the end, so you don't have to take notes unless you want to. China, Russia, Iran, Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, and Syria. And, right, you're not precluded just because you're one of these people and you're buying one of these type of properties. Agricultural land or property within 10 miles of critical infrastructure or a military installation. Now that sounds like it should be pretty easy to identify, right? It's not. The whole second group of people that's precluded from buying under the law are people who live in the People's Republic of China and are not citizens or lawful permanent residents of the US. They can't buy anywhere in Florida. The rules apply to buying any property in Florida, regardless of proximity to military installations or critical infrastructure. Note, there are limited exceptions to the critical infrastructure and military installation rule for buyers of one residential unit within 5 miles of these locations. The rules apply to real persons and foreign entities, companies, LLC, and incorporations. And to be honest, not that I'd ever be less than honest with you guys. I hate it when people say that to me, but to be completely transparent, I can't tell you how they're going to implement the companies, the entities portion of this law.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be clear, in my mind, it's clear if it's a company that's registered in the People's Republic of China. But what if the managers, owners, and executives are all People's Republic of China residents, but it's a domestic LLC, it's a Florida LLC, then what? I mean, in a black and white application of the law, they could buy, right? But if you have people that are setting up entities that are precluded parties, just so they can get around the law, that would be problematic too. So there's a lot of additional language that needs to be added to the law that's not there yet, making it difficult for us to implement. The definition of critical, and I'm giving you guys my thoughts that occur without further knowledge today, right? I might learn something tonight that changes this, but this is everything I can come up with as of today. July, what is it? August
1st.
2nd, August 1st, 2023. The definitions of critical infrastructure and military installations are not well defined, not easily determined, and include accessory properties that serve the principal property use. So if you look at the law, we'll go over it in a minute, there's all kinds of references to related infrastructure. So it'll say transformers, electrical transformers and related infrastructure. What is that? How far does related infrastructure go? So the point I'm trying to make is don't try to figure out the geographic relevance of your property. It's going to be a lot tougher than it sounds. How do Florida realtors protect themselves from exposure under the law? I've already received several calls from realtors representing buyers who said they can't close under the law, under the new law. One such buyer was under contract to purchase a several $million-dollar equestrian property in Wellington. The buyer told the realtor that they had to cancel. The realtor was unaware of the law or how it worked. I think it was on like July 4th, or the law or how it worked. The escrow was several $100,000 and the inspection period had ended. And the contract and the statute is silent on how to handle escrows in such an event. What a mess and a huge time suck for both agents. So now you've got a law. And if somebody has knowledge on this, I'm not going to tell you guys that I am the absolute knowledge base on all topics to this related. I'm just telling you what I've learned in the field so far. But now you're outside the inspection period. The buyer says, I can't close. Sounds to me like the seller has an argument for the deposit, but it also sounds like they don't. I mean, I can think of strong arguments on both sides of the fence. So we'll unpack this luggage together. If you take nothing away from this lecture, please remember this. Realtors if you take nothing away from this lecture, please remember this. Realtors must treat all buyers the same, whether you believe they might be a foreign buyer or not. There are testers calling realtors to see if they are discriminating. So right now, I'm going to blow you guys up and put you back in front of me because I want to see expressions. Right now, there are testers that are out there contacting agents, pretending to be buyers, pretending to be sellers, pretending to be buyers, so that they can test the law for fair housing, for discriminating activities. So realtors could be getting a call from a tester. And the first thing you want to say early in the transaction is, I'm going to give you some scripts to disseminate to your people, but you don't want to be caught saying the wrong thing to the tester or not saying anything to the tester. And now you're really in trouble because they'll test you as a non-foreigner and as a foreigner to make sure your responses are the same and you're not discriminating. So here's what you say. I hate to give you guys this because I know you already got enough on your plate, but the only way we're going to get through this is to share knowledge and do this thing together, even though it's another burden we don't need. How can I slide this over? I can't get to my toolbar.
At the bottom. I think at the
Yeah,
bottom.
I can't get to the toolbar because I have this the screen sharing thing up.
At the bottom, there's a little bar there.
Yeah, I just can't get to it because there we go. I got a little piece of it. If you're a buyer's agent early in your relationship with the buyer, send them an email with the following statement. Now, nobody drafted this for me, and I'm not relaying it to you guys based on a million data points that I've gleaned from other agents, other attorneys, which I can do a lot of times because stuff has been around for a little while. This is an original thought, and it's my opinion that this will keep you guys out of trouble. So this is your emailed statement to your buyer. Before we get started, I just want to make sure you're aware of the new Florida law prohibiting purchases by certain foreign buyers. At closing, the title company will have you sign an affidavit that states you're not a foreign buyer as defined by the new law. If you're not sure if you're a foreign buyer as defined by the new law, please let me know and consult a lawyer to get an opinion. Please let me know if you need a referral to a lawyer. I'm sorry for the inconvenience and happy to help in any way I can. It's another thing we got to do, but you want to get ahead of the ball as soon as possible. You may refer James Brown Law if you want, and best practices is to refer to others. So I'm sure you guys have heard this a million times before. Best way to stay out of trouble making referrals is to make 3. If you want to send your buyer a copy of the title agent's affidavit, that's fine. However, I suggest you do not participate in the signing of that affidavit. I'll get into more of that in a little bit. If you're a seller's agent, here's where you guys are really going to hate me. If you're a seller's agent early in the relationship with the buyer's agent, send them an email with the following statement. Before we get started, I just want to make sure you're aware of the new Florida law prohibiting purchase by certain foreign buyers. At closing, the title company will have you sign a statement, an affidavit that states you're not a foreign buyer, that they are not a foreign buyer as defined by the law. If they are not sure if they are a foreign buyer as defined by the new law, please tell them to consult a lawyer, get an opinion, and let me know. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but this extra step will make sure we both have a deal to close at the end of the journey. Again, you may refer us, and if you want to send affidavits supplied by your title company, you can, but it's not my suggestion. You also want to make sure you're using the latest FAR form. So the latest FAR form, I'm sure everybody knows this, but I'll just reiterate it. You see at the very bottom of every page, it'll say FAR as is 6X revised 723. So it's revised this year, July of this year, 2023. Make sure that's on the bottom. Many realtors tell me they are doing nothing because it's all in the contract. I'm hearing from title underwriting attorneys frequently about deals canceling late in the game on this issue. The goal is to move past the buyers who won't close as early as possible and get to the buyers who can. It's possible the law may be struck down. For now, we have to work as if it will be around forever. It is best practice for realtors to treat every buyer the same and not try to figure out if the buyer is a foreign buyer or if the property is defined as an agricultural military installation. I thought I had it in here. So there are a couple of different ways you can analyze agricultural property.
And that was a big reason DeSantis passed this bill, was he didn't want, a big thing that he had mentioned, he didn't want, China to be in control of our food production. That was a big reason of this bill.
So when you talk about ag properties, everybody thinks that you just go to the tax collector's website to determine whether a property has an ag delineation or not. But under the definition of the statute, properties are going to qualify as ag that don't qualify as ag from a taxing perspective. So if you think you have an ag property because it says ag in the tax collector's record, then you probably have an agricultural property as defined by the Florida statute. But the point I'm trying to make is there are going to be ag properties defined by the Florida statute that aren't identified as ag in the tax collector's records. So you have to make sure if you're going to represent to your buyers that this isn't an ag property as defined by the foreign buyer statute, that is truly not going to be an ag property in the end. That is not going to be an easy job to do the way the statute is written. I also think that not a ton of time was put into the writing of the statute because it won't be around forever, but that's a whole nother topic. At the time of the writing of this outline, the Department of Justice had filed a statement of interest in federal court and was looking into Fair Housing Act and the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause violations. I also found a number of articles that said the DOJ had filed a lawsuit for injunctive relief, but I did not find any cases. At the time of this article, there is no approved affidavit form. There is no approved affidavit form. That's how vague this thing is, right?
Hmm.
The state has dumped this in our lap and said, here's the law. But if you look at a number of other statutes, like just the easy one, like the 3-day notice statute that we've all seen for landlord tenant, the exact language of the 3-day notice is in the statute. So if you have a client and the client says, oh, my client, if you have a landlord client, they say, oh, my tenant's late, and you want to get in real good terms with them, and they say, we don't know what to do, send them a copy of the statute and say, here's the language right there in the 3-day notice. And all they have to do is cut and paste it and slap it on the guy's door or the woman's door. And now you've made a great client, but you've also got the exact language of the statute that's statutorily required. With this law, there is no statutory affidavit. It just says that everybody's going to sign an affidavit at closing, but nobody knows what it's going to say. So if some title agent says to you, this is absolutely the affidavit, or your broker says, this is absolutely the affidavit, it's not necessarily the affidavit, because I've seen 3 different underwriters with 3 different affidavits so far.
Are you using one, Jim, right now, an affidavit for the closings?
Yeah, we do. We write an attorney's title insurance fund. Their affidavit is so thin, it's ridiculous. Even in the contract, at least it says these states, these countries are precluded from buying, or these are the controlled countries. All the affidavit we're having buyers sign is an affidavit that says they're either not a foreign buyer as defined by the rules, or they're a foreign buyer as defined by the rules, and they're not buying within the certain radius of critical infrastructure. But it doesn't even give that much description. It just gives the statute numbers. And what I will tell you is, from a practical perspective, I truly think, based on 40 years of doing this, I truly think that a bad guy or a bad actor, let's just say, is not going to go like, oh, that's us, we can't close at the last minute. I truly think that if any bad actor is going to employ a straw person to make the closing happen. So you're not going to necessarily ferret out the bad actors by doing all the things we're talking about, because I really don't think you're going to get a deal canceling at the last minute. I think what you're doing is you're putting all the cards on the table, and if there is somebody who has some questions, you're going to be getting the answers early so you know they can work with you or not, but you're also going to not be running afoul of the testers. The testers are what I'm seeing is the biggest threat to being a real estate agent. And I don't even know what the fair housing and the 14th Amendment violations are, but that's what you don't want to run afoul of. So it's kind of like we're doing this thing because this law is in place for a little while and we got to do it. Do I necessarily think we're going to ferret out the bad actors and identify some bad actors? No. But I know there are testers out there making sure you're not discriminating. So you got to make, so your biggest threat is the testers. If anybody has any questions, just give me a call or send me a text. Frederico, what are you thinking?
Rodrigo's on.
You're on mute.
Yeah, I just want to say, I was born and raised in Venezuela, and I know what it means to be a bad actor. So when you say that this law can be removed anytime soon or something similar, I wouldn't expect that. And the reason is that communism and these countries have been around for many, many decades already. So most likely this law is going to be part of the permanent fabrics of our business.
I think that, go ahead, sorry.
And the reason is that those countries, the common thing with those countries is that there is no rule of law, absolutely no rule of law. You may think that they are similar to the US, but they are not. They're completely different. It's another universe. So most likely this law is going to be needed for many years to come.
And you know, I use the term bad actor. When I say bad actor, I'm not referring to people from that country. I work with people from Russia that want to come to the United States. I work with some agents to cultivate some Russian, you know, just because they're a bad government or people within those countries that are bad people doesn't make it a bad country. When I talk about bad actors, I'm specifically talking about people who have bad intent for the United States are not going to necessarily be busted by this law, because I think those people with bad intent are clever enough to have gotten around the law before they even made an offer to purchase. And you're just going to be dealing with straw people that have the bad actor behind them. But I also think, with regard to Frederico's perspective, I think it's also, we have to understand that this law is going to have negative impacts on good people, right? It kind of vilifies a certain group of people that want to come here and have a nice life and are wonderful people, but it throws a net over all the people from that country, in some respect vilifying those people. And I don't want to, our job is to stay focused on the black and white legal issues, right? And so you're either qualify under the law as a foreigner or not. But I do think that it creates an unfortunate mystique for a lot of good people from certain countries. And I don't want to jump too deep down that rabbit hole, because I have some pretty strong opinions on that. But I also agree with Frederico. There are some elements of this law that may stick around long term. Yeah, I think it has some long-term play. I've already seen this as well. In your listings, don't make representations to proximity of critical infrastructure or military installations. I've already seen some listings, this property is outside of the new foreign buyer zone, so everybody's safe. When they talk about, if we talked about this already, I know Ryan and I were talking about this before the session, but when they talk about critical infrastructure, they're talking about transformers and related infrastructure. So we can all drive by a big transformer station and say that's a transformer station, but how far down the road, how far down the line, no pun intended, is related infrastructure, right? All your wiring throughout Florida, leaving the transfer station, going to private homes, is related infrastructure. But we all know the law wasn't meant to capture to be that granular. So making statements like that is not a safe thing to do in your listings. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer questions. This is going to be tricky for everyone, but there are probably, yeah, this is what we were talking about earlier. One example of this is there are property that are going to be designated agricultural in the tax records, but they're not designated agricultural in the tax records, but they are agricultural as defined by the statute. Here's some articles on the problems with the law. They're easy to find. Here's one depth in explanation from Real Deal. I've got some documents that I can share with you guys from our underwriter that show you how confusing this law can be. Let's see, Realtor education, foreign buyer. So here is a flow chart
I saw that.
of how to interpret the law. We are not going through this, but here are some problems with the law. So when you talk about agricultural and related critical infrastructure, you're talking about fences, barriers, guard posts, like how far does this thing go out? Chemical manufacturing, refinery, electrical power plants is defined by 403 and 031, and water treatment plants and related infrastructure. Well, water treatment, all the lines that deliver water to your house are related infrastructure to the water treatment plant. Without, harping on it too much, where does it end? So it's not going to be an easy law to figure out. The best thing you can do is ask them the question. If they have questions, refer them to an attorney. I have not received any calls from anybody asking for a determination if they're a foreign buyer as defined by the law. But I know those questions are going to come, and quite frankly, I know it's going to be a tough burden for me to figure out who it is. I can't find any attorneys that are claiming they're expert in this field, but I'm sure there are some. And as time goes on, there will be more, because it's going to be an area that I think gets hit on a lot. Does anybody have any questions before we move on to the next topic? The outline is going to be made available to you guys on the website. The FAR form is updated, and as far as affidavit forms, I'm not going to provide any, but whoever you're closing with, they should provide some to you. If your broker says, I want you to get the affidavit out there early, make sure you use the affidavit that your broker likes. Either I did a really good job explaining, or you guys are asleep or timid.
That was good. It was good, Jim. Go ahead.
All right. Topic 2.
We had one question. Did anybody have a question?
Jim, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, hi there. So I have a question. We've been working over a year or more with some buyers, and most of them actually are from different countries. Tanya and I deal with a lot of foreign. And we've been working, showing, we haven't gone to anything. Should we be proactive and go ahead and send the email to these customers in the event that they are going to have a contract in the near future? Be proactive and send them the email and say, hey, you've got to check. Here's Jim. Here's 2 other attorneys. You need to check because this is a new law.
No, Suzanne, hi, everybody. I don't think so, because most of our buyer has a permanent citizen, permanent green card or citizen here. So
okay. All right. So we won't have to worry about them. Is that the point? If they are permanent residents, we don't have to send
we don't need to worry.
Okay.
If they're permanent US residents, you don't have to worry.
They all of them so far, unless somebody from England, but in Germany, but we know them.
Yeah, but then you're working on people from Kazakhstan, and if one of them pops up.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's when the people is foreigners and they're from Kazakhstan.
Yes, exactly, because we are courting foreign buyers. So it is something we need to think of.
From overseas, absolutely, I agree.
I don't think it hurts to send the email, the little script I gave you guys.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, just so we have it on record that we advise them, because contract may come up this month, next month, and then we don't want to be caught like you didn't do the email, you didn't advise them.
This is the perfect segue into the next topic I wanted to talk about. And the next topic I wanted to talk about was, I'm seeing, there was a time when all our deals used to be what I like to call hairless, right? But now all our deals are so wrought with issues and so covered with hair. And there's just so many issues that come up along the way. To be a really good realtor today, you have to be able to, you have to know the rules, and you have to cut off the other side and their unnecessary dialogue early in the transaction by knowing the rules. And so if you're going to be effective, you can't be burning your calories on a bunch of wasted conversation when the topics are already covered in the contract. There's a pecking order of where the rules exist for all realtors. The first place that the rules exist is the contract. If you can't find a rule in the contract, there's a statute. If there's no statute, there's an ordinance. If there's no ordinance, there's case law, and then there's policy. But the first place to go, the top of the pecking order to find your answer, is always the contract. And I will tell you that probably 90 to 95% of all the issues that we come up with are answerable in the contract. And the things that I try to do for you guys is try to find those little areas in the contract that are not so black and white, not so easy to figure out. And so I made a little list of stuff to think about before our next show. FERPTA, 1031. When can a seller cancel a contract? When can a seller cancel a contract? When does sellers have to give back escrow? When do sellers have to give back escrows? I'm not saying you guys don't know this, but I'm saying there are tons of agents that don't know that their sellers have a right to not give back the escrow, even if the buyer cancels during the inspection period, right? So now I've seen realtors burn up tons of conversation back and forth. You got to give back the money. There's one sentence in the contract in the inspection period that says when a seller doesn't have to give back the money during the inspection period. When can buyers cancel last minute? There's an old case called Pine Tree. Buyers are relying on it. They're canceling contracts last minute. What are the 5 parts of the condominium disclosure? What are the 5 document sections that have to be delivered in the condominium disclosures? If you don't get them, the buyers can cancel last minute. What is cost segregation, and when is that a valuable tool for buyers? What is the Inflation Reduction Act solar tax credit? Those last 2 things are like value add props that distinguish you as the superior agent. But these other things, mandatory escrows, when do sellers have to pay mandatory escrows during the transaction right prior to closing? If you know the answers to those things, when those issues come up, you hammer the other side with the answer, and now you've just cut off the dialogue. And so the point I'm trying to make is read the contract a few times this month. Read the contract once a month, twice a month, every month moving forward. It will hone your skills and sharpen your abilities as an agent. I did an addendums writing class the other day for a group of agents I work with. And when we started talking about writing addendums, there are a couple of things to keep in mind to write powerful, effective addendums. If you stay focused on writing and communicating in a way, you will eliminate a lot of the conversation that I'm seeing realtors get bogged down with. And if you guys want to, you can text me. Like I said, you can go to New Path Title and find my cell phone number. But if you want to, and you have issues you want to talk about in future sessions, let me know. In the meantime, that's all I had to talk about today. I wanted to turn it over to Ryan for a few minutes to talk about real trade. And then I had some real value props I wanted to mention about title advance and some success stories. But if anybody needs to log off, that was the session for today.
Awesome, Jim. Thanks. I hope everybody got some great info. I know I'm working with some foreign buyers that could qualify here with this new law. So definitely very pertinent to me, so those who don't know, I'm Ryan Poole. I've been an agent in the trenches, just like you guys here in South Florida for over 20 years. I founded a company called Real Trade. It's an online marketplace and social media platform for real estate. And the cool thing is it's free for agents. And the big thing is there, you create a profile. Not only do you own your own listings, so buyers and sellers can contact you directly. Okay, they can actually search out and find you too if they need a buyer's agent. And we have some awesome features, live listing updates where you can update your listing in real time. And buyers and other agents can see that. And also too, you can post buyer needs. So if you have a buyer that's looking for a property, you can't find inventory, you now have a place to post that. Thousands of other agents are going to see, and of course, thousands of buyers and sellers are going to see that as well. So it could help fulfill that. Big thing is too, last I want to talk about is connect with awesome service providers like Jim on there, some great title companies, lenders. Jeff is on there. He's on the call. We have some great inspectors, appraisers, solar companies, you name it, are actually on the platform to help you facilitate the sale. So big thing is it's free for agents. I tell all the agents, take the 10 minutes, create a profile, you can make tens of thousands of dollars. And I do want to say this, we have integrated now, okay, with Jim in title advance. So you can actually order a title advance right from Real Trade for your property. So there's no surprises. Can't speak enough about title advance. It's a great tool. It's free for agents as well. And there's no surprises at closing, like there's some kind of crazy lien or something on the property.
MV realty liens, permanent
Yep.
listing agreements.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, right, we want to burn the fewest calories we can to get to the closing line, to get to the finish line. I wish everybody was on camera right now, but I have some people that I'm trying to get on Real Trade. Who needs a handyman? Who needs a good handyman, handy woman, handy person to go into their properties when you need little things done and the seller's dragging their heels? I have some great handy people that I'm trying to get onto the Real Trade platform, and it'll be, literally a click for you guys to be in touch with some people that I've vetted that are going to provide great services to you guys. So
That's
I think,
nice.
yeah,
We need it.
yeah. Ryan, how many realtors are you up to on Real Trade?
We have over 1,500 now. We're closing in on 1,600, Jim.
Wow.
So yeah, and we're all communicating, guys. We're sharing information, helping sell properties quicker. I mean, I've done deals
Yeah.
myself. Yeah, from
You
that.
get a,
so
you
it's
get a,
pretty
you
cool.
get a seller that says, oh, I don't want to list my property. Now you've got a real place that you can go to and get out in front of a bunch of agents, productive agents. And I want to touch upon title advance for a second. We're seeing some real deals saved as far as closing on time, and as equity shrinks, I'm seeing realtors, I saw one this week, not burning calories on files that aren't going to close.
Mhm.
I saw a transaction this week. It had a mortgage on it. When you talk to the seller said, yeah, there's a 335 sale. The mortgage is 180 grand. Seller failed to tell the realtor, oh, this thing hasn't, nobody's paid on this mortgage in 2 years. It was a hard money lender. Turns out that the mortgage value was north of the sale price, and everybody's burned a ton of calories in the deal. A title advance will be able to quickly show the realtor, here's the mortgage, and you can have the conversations, oh, I see the mortgage to XYZ lender. I'm assuming that's current, blah, 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 blah. You just sound like a much more educated agent. And those homeowners that think that HELOC doesn't have to get paid off in the sale. There are tons of homeowners that we call as a title company and we say, oh, can you please give us some payoff statements for that first mortgage to Chase Bank and the second mortgage to Fifth Third on the home equity line? And the seller says, oh, that Fifth Third equity line doesn't have to get, that Fifth Third isn't a mortgage. It doesn't have to get paid off in the sale. And how painful a conversation is it a couple of days before closing? And we're telling them, yes, it does. Now their expectations of pocketing 200 just went down to 100. And so we all get buyer loan approvals long ahead of getting in the car with buyers. You got to get title advances before getting in bed with sellers. It's a necessity in the shrinking market.
Dude, Jim, I had an issue. This is before you had title advances. It was a couple years ago with MV Realty, that they had an agreement. He heard that the seller didn't let me know. They signed an agreement years prior with this MV Realty, that MV Realty basically liened their property, that they got the listing, or they had to be paid a 6% commission. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And then I got to closing and then found that out.
2 commissions the seller had to pay, and
The 2 commissions, and the deal was so thin that I actually ended up having to cut my commission,
right?
To make the deal happen as a listing agent, so the seller didn't have to come with money to the table. Can you imagine the seller thought they were getting money and they ended up getting nothing?
Yeah.
It was
And then the commissions and the realtors that thought they were going to be booking a $6,000 commission, now they're booking 3 because they had to kick in 3 to make the deal close.
Yeah.
As soon as the deals go south, we all know who the seller points to. And so we have to be ahead of the ball so that we're not having to come out of pocket last minute. And it's just a matter of knowing the property inside and out. You never show a buyer to a property they can't afford. You should never list sellers that are, you should list every seller you can, but you should set expectations for the revenue to seller as early as you can in the transaction. It goes back to that second point of today's discussion, cutting off as much dialogue as you can early in the deal.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I got. 45 minutes. Hope you guys pick something up.
Thank you.
I do want to
you,
just give
Jim.
a shout out, Jim, though, to Title Leap, that's integrated with New Path Title. I do want to say that, guys. Title Leap's amazing. It's
We know
basically like
that.
it is.
We
It's like
know
a
that.
contract
The
coordinator.
best of the best.
I don't even want to go to any other title companies that don't have the software, because it literally saves you time and headaches. You have all your critical drop dead dates on there. It's, the whole communication is right there, right through the portal. You get texts, you get emails. So there's no surprises, with the buyer going, oh my gosh, your finance contingency's up. You literally have like flashing red signs when you slide into Title Leap and you get texts, and it's just a great value proposition.
It's
So-
amazing.
And you'll never forget.
We love it.
And you'll never drop another loan inspection period or an inspection period again. It'll never catch you by surprise. Because if you do get caught by surprise, the buyer and the seller are already on notification through Title Leap. And if after the inspection period passes, the buyer or the seller starts pointing the finger at you, you can actually point them to the app and say, look, there's a notification log. And you can say, here's where Title Leap told you it ended Tuesday. Don't you start calling me the bad realtor on Wednesday. So,
yeah.
all right, you
It
guys.
saves it. Awesome.
Have a good
Okay.
week. Have a good
Have a
2
good
weeks.
week.
With
Yes.
that,
All right, everybody. All
you
right.
guys,
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye. Thank you very much.
my
Bye.
pleasure. Ryan, are you still here? No. Let's see.